Imagine taking a wrong step and suddenly falling through reality itself. The floor beneath you gives way, but instead of falling into darkness, you land somewhere else. An endless maze of empty office rooms with sickly yellow wallpaper, damp carpet, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights. No windows, no people, no exit signs. Just an infinite corporate labyrinth that feels almost familiar, yet fundamentally wrong. This is the Backrooms, a place that doesn't exist, yet millions of people recognize instantly. A digital nightmare born from a single anonymous post that grew into one of the internet's most elaborate shared horror universes. Welcome to Vanishing Threads. Today we're exploring the Backrooms, a digital anomaly that began as a single unsettling image posted anonymously in 2019, but rapidly evolved into a sprawling collaborative mythology with its own rules, monsters, and explorers. What makes the Backrooms so compelling isn't just its eerie aesthetic, but how it taps into a universal feeling, that sense of being lost in a place that feels both familiar and wrong. It's a perfect example of how the internet can transform a simple idea into a complex shared universe with thousands of people contributing to its evolution. Let's unravel this thread and discover how we collectively built one of the most recognizable digital nightmares of our time. To understand the Backrooms, we first need to understand the concept of liminal spaces, transitional areas that exist between one destination and another. Think empty hallways, abandoned malls, or vacant waiting rooms, places designed for people to pass through, not to stay in. When these spaces are empty, they create an uncanny feeling. Something is missing, something is wrong. This concept had been floating around the internet for years, with photographers and digital artists capturing these unsettling in-between spaces. But the Backrooms crystallized this feeling into something more specific and more terrifying. On May 12, 2019, an anonymous user on 4chan's/X paranormal board posted a simple image in a thread asking for disquieting images that just feel off. The photo showed an office-like space with yellowed wallpaper, harsh fluorescent lighting, and stained carpet, all photographed at a slightly tilted angle. There were no people, no furniture, just empty space extending into the distance. Along with this image, the user posted a short description that would become the foundation for an entire mythology. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you. This single post struck a nerve. Within days, it had spread across 4chan, Reddit, and other platforms. People began expanding on the concept, adding their own experiences, theories, and embellishments. The Backrooms had begun its journey from a single image to a collaborative horror universe. What happened next demonstrates the internet's unique ability to collectively build upon ideas at lightning speed. Within weeks of the original post, the Backrooms concept had evolved from a single location to a complex multi-level reality with its own internal logic and bestiary of entities. The original description mentioned something wandering around, but didn't specify what. Internet users quickly filled this void, creating dozens of entities that supposedly inhabit the Backrooms, from the relatively benign hounds that avoid human contact to the terrifying smilers that hide in dark corners, revealing themselves only through their unnaturally wide grins. By June 2019, barely a month after the original post, a rough consensus had emerged about the structure of the Backrooms. It wasn't just one space, but multiple levels, each with its own characteristics and dangers. Level 0, the yellow rooms. The original setting with yellow wallpaper, buzzing fluorescent lights, and damp carpet. Relatively safe, but disorienting and psychologically taxing. Level 1, the warehouses. Darker, industrial spaces with concrete floors and distant machinery sounds. More dangerous than Level 0, with a higher chance of encountering hostile entities. Level 2, the maintenance tunnels. pipelined corridors with poor lighting and the constant sound of dripping water, highly dangerous with numerous aggressive entities, and so on, with some versions of the Backrooms mythology extending to hundreds of levels, each more bizarre and threatening than the last. As the Backrooms mythology grew more complex, fans began creating wikis to document and organize this expanding universe. The two largest, the Backrooms wiki and the Liminal archives, became hubs for collaborative world-building, with thousands of contributors adding new levels, entities, and survival guides. These wikis adopted the format and tone of the SCP Foundation, another collaborative fiction project we've covered in a previous video, presenting the Backrooms as if it were a real phenomenon being documented by researchers and survivors. Entries were written in a clinical, matter-of-fact style that enhanced the creepiness through contrast, horrifying concepts described in mundane language. For example, from the Backrooms wiki entry on Level 0. Level 0 is the first level of the Backrooms. It appears as an endless maze of randomly generated office rooms. All rooms on this level share the same superficial features: yellowed wallpaper, moist carpet, fluorescent lighting, and indistinguishable ambient noise. The rooms are known to have a volume of 600 million square miles, making escape nearly impossible without clipping through the level. This pseudo-scientific approach gave the Backrooms a veneer of plausibility that made it more unsettling. It wasn't presented as fiction, but as a documented phenomenon with its own internal rules and logic. In January 2022, the Backrooms concept took another evolutionary leap when a YouTube user named Kane Pixels uploaded a short found footage-style video simply titled "The Backrooms Found Footage." The 9-minute video, created using impressive VFX skills, depicted a camera operator accidentally clipping through reality into the Backrooms during a film shoot. What made this video remarkable wasn't just its technical quality, especially considering Kane was only 16 years old when he created it, but how it expanded the Backrooms lore in new directions. The video introduced the concept of no clipping as a physical phenomenon that could be accidentally triggered, and hinted at a mysterious organization that was aware of and studying the Backrooms. The video went viral, accumulating over 44 million views and introducing the Backrooms to a much wider audience. Kane Pixels followed it with a series of related videos that expanded his version of the Backrooms mythology, focusing on the fictional Async Research Institute and their experiments with interdimensional travel. This visual interpretation cemented certain aspects of the Backrooms in the public imagination: the yellow wallpaper, the fluorescent lighting, the liminal emptiness, while adding new elements like the bacteria entity that appears at the end of the original video. As the Backrooms concept spread, game developers began creating interactive experiences that allowed players to explore this nightmare realm firsthand. These ranged from simple walking simulators that captured the aesthetic of endless yellow rooms to more complex horror games featuring the various entities that had become part of the lore. The most notable of these was The Backrooms Game by Pie on a Plate Productions, which faithfully recreated the atmosphere of the original concept while adding game mechanics that required players to manage their sanity while exploring the endless rooms. What made these games particularly effective was how they captured the psychological horror of the Backrooms, the disorientation, the monotony, the sense of being trapped in a place that shouldn't exist. Players reported genuine anxiety while navigating these virtual spaces, a testament to how powerfully the Backrooms concept resonated with primal fears. What is it about the Backrooms that resonates so deeply with so many people? The concept taps into several universal fears and experiences. Spatial disorientation, the fear of being lost in an environment where all landmarks look the same. Liminality, the unsettling feeling of being in transitional spaces that aren't meant for extended occupation. Corporate anonymity, the dehumanizing aspect of generic office environments designed without human comfort in mind. Reality breakdown, the existential terror of discovering that reality isn't as solid or reliable as we believe. The Backrooms also appeals to a distinctly modern anxiety, the fear that our increasingly artificial environments are somehow hostile or alien to human needs. The endless office rooms represent the worst aspects of modern architecture: soulless, repetitive, and divorced from nature. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the Backrooms phenomenon is how it functions as a collaborative mythology. Unlike traditional horror franchises controlled by a single creator or company, the Backrooms belongs to everyone and no one. There is no canonical version. Each contributor is free to add their own interpretation, and the community collectively decides which additions become widely accepted. This collaborative approach has created a remarkably rich and diverse mythology. Some contributors focus on the physical architecture of the Backrooms, creating detailed maps and floor plans. Others develop the entities that inhabit this space, complete with behavioral patterns and origin stories. Still others write narrative accounts of explorers and their attempts to navigate or escape the Backrooms. The result is a horror universe that feels organic and evolving, with the contradictions and inconsistencies that would naturally arise in accounts of a real, unexplained phenomenon. This gives the Backrooms a verisimilitude that more carefully controlled fictional worlds often lack. The Backrooms represents a uniquely 21st century form of folklore, digital mythology created through mass collaboration. Unlike traditional urban legends that evolved slowly through oral transmission, the Backrooms emerged and evolved at internet speed, with thousands of contributors simultaneously shaping its development. What makes the Backrooms particularly interesting is how it demonstrates the internet's ability to rapidly iterate on concepts. The original post contained just a few key elements: yellow wallpaper, fluorescent lights, damp carpet, and a vague menace. Everything else, the levels, the entities, the complex mythology, was added through a process of collective imagination. This process mirrors how traditional folklore evolved, but at a dramatically accelerated pace. Instead of stories changing gradually over generations, the Backrooms mythology developed its core features within months, even weeks. And unlike traditional folklore, which often varies by region, the Backrooms is a truly global phenomenon, with contributors from across the world adding to the same shared mythology. The visual language of the Backrooms has become instantly recognizable, so much so that similar spaces in the real world are often described as Backrooms-esque. This aesthetic combines several elements that trigger psychological discomfort. Repetition without variation in the endless similar rooms. Artificial lighting that distorts natural color perception. Spaces designed for human use that are conspicuously empty of humans. Slight decay, such as the stained carpet, peeling wallpaper, suggesting abandonment. These elements create what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that occurs when we encounter something that violates our expectations. The Backrooms looks almost like normal office space, but with subtle wrongness that our brains can't quite reconcile. What's particularly fascinating about the Backrooms is how it transcended its origins as a simple creepypasta to become something more substantive. While many internet horror concepts flare briefly and fade away, the Backrooms has demonstrated remarkable staying power, evolving from a single image to a complex shared universe with its own internal logic and rules. This evolution shows how the internet can transform simple ideas into complex mythologies through collective creativity. The Backrooms isn't just a story or an image, it's a conceptual space that thousands of people have contributed to building, each adding their own interpretations while respecting the core concept that makes it recognizable. The Backrooms represent something unique in the history of storytelling, a horror concept that belongs to everyone and no one, that evolved organically through mass collaboration rather than being designed by a single creator. It demonstrates the internet's power to create new forms of folklore and mythology that resonate across cultural boundaries. What began as a single unsettling image has become a vast collaborative universe that continues to expand and evolve. New levels are still being added to the wikis, new entities are being designed, and new stories are being told. Game developers continue to create interactive experiences based on the Backrooms concept, and filmmakers like Kane Pixels continue to explore its visual potential. The Backrooms has become more than just a creepypasta or an internet meme. It's a shared cultural touchstone that captures a distinctly modern form of unease. The fear of being lost in spaces designed not for human comfort, but for corporate efficiency. The anxiety that behind our carefully constructed reality lurks something vast and incomprehensible. The suspicion that if you took a wrong turn, you might find yourself in a place where the normal rules no longer apply. Perhaps that's why the Backrooms continues to fascinate us, because it transforms a mundane environment into something mysterious and threatening. It takes the boring, everyday office space that millions of people navigate without thought and reveals the potential horror lurking just beneath its banal surface. In doing so, it reminds us that the most effective horror doesn't come from exotic monsters or supernatural threats, but from transforming the familiar into something strange and threatening. The Backrooms isn't scary because it's alien. It's scary because it's almost recognizable. Almost, but not quite. And that liminal space between recognition and alienation is where true horror resides. If you're interested in exploring the Backrooms further, we've included links to the major wikis and Kane Pixels' YouTube channel in the description below. Just be careful not to spend too much time staring at those yellow walls. You might start to hear something wandering nearby. If you enjoyed this audio experience, please consider subscribing to the channel. New stories are added every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to join us on Sunday for our campsite series, perfect for background listening while you work, relax, or drift off to sleep. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay curious, stay safe,